Hi all, I'm Sophie. I want to tell you the story about my abduction right during the escape room quest. I have never been more scared for my life. So this story happened last year. My birthday was just approaching and I was thinking how to celebrate it. I wanted to come up with something original. Not just eat cake and dance, but something that everyone would remember. After all, turning 16 only happens once. After thoroughly talking to my friends, I carefully selected people to invite, thought out my outfit, and made a whole program for my wild party. My mother suggested that I arrange an escape room quest, come up with a game with hints for each level. It will be so interesting and everyone will talk about it later. It was a brilliant idea. My friends and I gathered in my house for a whole week to think of every small detail. The quest was called Find Sophie. I had to hide in one of the corners of my house. The spot was very difficult to find because it was in the basement in the backyard. I prepared the place for myself in advance, and on my birthday, I bought drinks and pizza there to keep myself busy. I put on a beautiful white summer dress that my parents gave me. They took my sister with them and went out of town so that I could celebrate my day without any interruptions. I invited 15 people, and among the guests were my classmates and my neighbors. Mom asked why I did not invite my cousin Nelson, but I didn't want to ruin my day with arrogant people like him. Even from childhood, I knew that he was dumb, but he's your cousin, and you have to show respect, my dad said. But I just said that if I were to be respectful then, I had to invite a lot more people, including the ones that I hated. We did not discuss that afterwards. In the morning, my relatives called to congratulate me, but I was waiting for the evening. We prepared our pool, took out the speakers outside, got food and bought drinks. Everything had to be at the highest level. My mother beautifully decorated the outside of the house. My photos were everywhere, balloons, and the evening was supposed to end with amazing fireworks. So, my dear guests, welcome to my birthday! Thank you all for coming. We decided to make this day not quite usual. To make it more fun, everyone is now involved. The winner, whoever finds me first, will get a prize, I said in my welcome speech, and then explained the rules of the game. The guys sat down on the floor and closed their eyes, and my friends checked them. They were filming everything for memories. I hid in my spot and waited. On command, everyone scattered to look for the birthday girl. I sat and heard screams and laughter, and my mood got even better. I heard the guys running around the house, all over the yard looking for me. Some even had small teams to make it faster. I sat and watched an online broadcast via my phone thanks to my friends Kimberly and Abby. The smart ones managed to find clues in the notes, and others decided to show their imagination and began to go to my neighbors' houses asking, "Where's Sophie?" After about 20 minutes, some of the guys got tired and just sat down to eat, have some drinks, and some were even on their phones. My girls tried to intrigue them with a special surprise to stimulate their interest. I saw from the video that no one even had any clue about my whereabouts, despite the clues. Suddenly, the door to the basement opened. I jumped up to finally see the long-awaited winners and started recording. 3 unknown people with black masks on their face ran into my basement. I thought it was a joke. At first, I smiled, and then I realized that something was wrong. They sealed my mouth with a duct tape and put a bag over my head. I barely had time to hide my phone. I screamed as best as I could, but no one heard me because of loud music. They dragged me somewhere, and as I understood, they threw me into the trunk of a car and took me somewhere. I realized that those were not my friends and everything was happening for real. I began to cry. I couldn't see anything because of the bag on my head. I was really scared and started kicking everything around. Then the car stopped and they carried me somewhere. Suddenly, the bag was removed from my head, and I saw a harsh, bright light, and it made me squint. 3 silhouettes stood behind the lamp. I knew immediately who it was. "Nelson, moron, I know it's you. Only you have such stupid humor. Free me now, otherwise I will complain to my parents and they will get to you," I threatened. But he stood there and laughed and did not even answer. Anger boiled in me. I was ready to pounce on him for ruining the party. I said that if he let me go within 5 minutes, I will not report on him, but otherwise he would be in big trouble. "I don't know who Nelson is, girl, but I hope he has a lot of money to redeem you," said a voice I did not recognize. Then my anger was replaced by fear. I realized that this was not a joke, but actual kidnappers. I cried out of fear, began to ask to call my parents, and they said that they had already called, but they refused to pay. "Since nobody wants you, we need to decide what to do with you." the stranger said. I cried even more. How could this be real? I couldn't believe it. Did my parents abandon me? They said they didn't have that kind of money, added the big guy. The whole world collapsed before me. I wasn't ready to hear that. After talking to each other, they began to ask me where the money was in the house, and I did not know. They never told me about it, but the kidnappers did not believe me. They began to pressure me and then said that they would start torturing me now. I burst into tears and they sealed my mouth. One of them came up to me and showed me a penknife, and just from the sight of it, I felt sick. The other one took out a lighter, holding it right in front of my face. Somehow, I searched for the phone and called the police with the emergency button. Suddenly, the door of the place where I was being held opened abruptly, and I jumped. Then my friends came in with a cake, and a big man with the lighter lit the candles, and another with a penknife cut out a piece. Surprise! Everyone shouted. A second later, the police rushed in. They saw me tied in a chair and immediately twisted the hands of those masked guys. Some of my classmates fled, and another one was also caught and told not to move. I sat in shock and did not understand anything. Generally speaking, we spent the next couple of hours at the police station. It turned out that those brutes are friends of Nelson, and he couldn't come up with anything more original than kidnapping me. It was their personal revenge plan because I did not invite them. They talked to everyone in advance except my girlfriends, which is why no one could find me. I thought it was going to be funny, he said. That's why I didn't want to invite you, I screamed angrily. In the end, we all went home. Or rather, we waited until our parents picked everyone up. We didn't even see the fireworks. My white dress was completely ruined. But one thing was still a success. This birthday I will definitely never forget. What unusual birthday did you have? Share with us in the comments. And do not forget to subscribe. It always seemed to me that everything in life depended on money. Will you now think that I'm materialistic, cynical, greedy? But it is the ones who have the money that rule the world. They could buy everything: houses, cars, plane tickets to other countries, yachts, friendship, and even love. Say whatever you want, but people are even more corrupt than you think. I know that. My name is Daisy, and as you all understood, I was born and raised in a wealthy family. My parents also grew up in excellent families. We never knew hunger. I always bought what I wanted. My parents gifted me the most luxurious doll houses for Christmas. Yes, parents, not Santa. I don't know how I deserved it, but my parents themselves gave me what I wanted. Anyway, I liked the way things were. Besides me, there was also my brother in the family. His name is Leo. Him and I are not that close because he's 6 years older than me. He has his own life and I have mine. Because I had no one to play with growing up, and since my parents were always at work and Leo disappeared with his friends or girls, I played alone. I didn't have too many friends at school. Many did not want to be friends with me, and no one said why. I think they were just jealous of me. But to be honest, when I saw their photos on Instagram, how they visited each other's houses, celebrated birthdays, I also wanted to be among them. So I decided to take the situation into my own hands and move on to action. Our class was divided into friend groups, more often boys and girls, but among girls, there were even more groups based on interests. And so at first, I chose girls who had money, but not as much as I did. I bought them desserts at lunch, invited them to amusement parks where I paid for everything myself. Our fake friendship lasted for some time, but I still did not feel accepted. Then I decided to join another friend group with even more simpler girls, but the same thing awaited me there. Then I chose 2 girls whose parents were poor, and you know what struck me? They just refused to accept my generous gestures. Why did this happen? After all, everyone needs money, right? One of them was named Evie. She had 5 siblings at home. Her parents worked, but their income was very small. My mom probably spent more money at once than what they earned in a year. Evie pissed me off the most because she did not give in and did not agree to my friendship proposals. Once I even wanted to pay her to come to my birthday, she only said that it was 3 months too early and that she would decide later on. I got very angry with her and started bullying her. I pushed her as I walked along the corridors, threw her things off the table, spat on her legs, called her homeless. Gradually, the hatred grew more and more. Evie didn't answer anything. She just did not pay attention to me. Yeah, you're rich, but don't think you can buy me or intimidate me, she told me. Then I decided to prove her the opposite, that in this world everyone is subject to money. And then something happened that changed me forever. Once after school, I went up to my classmates and offered to play a little game. I promised each one of them $100 if they passed my test. The girls hesitated, but I reassured that everything was safe, explaining that we were just having fun. They asked me what interest I had in this. I lied, saying that it was just a challenge. Whoever passes it will receive an even greater reward. Evie was also among them. She silently looked at me and the girls. When everyone agreed, I invited them to come to my house in the evening. I saw that Evie shook her head, so I went up to her personally and said that today she would see the real faces of her friends. Evie thought about it and then said that she would come only to watch me fail. But I had a brilliant plan. In the evening, when the girls came, I asked my parents if I could spend the night at Evie's. I told my mother a lot about her, only the good things of course, so that she would allow me to go to her house overnight. This was all part of the plan. I gathered the girls and then took them to our unfinished villa. It was very far away, so I ordered us a taxi, paying the driver extra for silence. There were the 6 of us in total. We all fit into an SUV and then went there. The place looked creepy, especially at dusk. I looked at Evie and whispered to her that her friends would now risk their lives for money. I pulled out the money, announcing the rules. You have to go into this house with 1 flashlight and find $100 in a bottle. The one who finds it will receive 100 more. I will say right away, this is not an ordinary house. It's not finished because the site on which it stands was previously a cemetery. It scared my poor mother and persuaded my dad to give up the construction. There are ghosts, aggressive and unhappy that we have invaded their space. Personally, I'm not afraid of them. Are you? I asked my classmates and saw their faces. They were all so scared. Are you chickened out? But what about $200 and something extra? I asked, already getting anxious. Evie stood aside and watched the whole thing. 2 girls refused, so there were 4 of us left. One asked about the bonus, and I said that I would give a new iPhone, and everyone agreed. I smiled, gave Evie the saint a malicious look, and then turned my gaze to the others. The girls carefully entered the house. They were gone for about 10 minutes, armed with flashlights and nothing else. Oh, and by the way, I left some surprises for them inside. My talking doll, my brother's old things, and ketchup blood, blood-like marks on the walls made out of ketchup. After 5 minutes, we heard wild screams. They both ran out hysterical, shouting something incomprehensible. The other 2 girls who refused also started screaming. They ran into the road and got a taxi. Evie and I were left alone. She looked into my eyes and said, "You see, people are not always ready to take money. People want to live more than they want a new iPhone." I was angry. They're just cowards. Couldn't even get the money out. Believed my ghost stories. And it's all because of you. If you were friends with me, nothing like this would have happened. Just remember that people like you will always eat leftovers after people like me. You will never have money. Your parents will always stay poor and I will have everything, I shouted. Then I turned and walked angrily towards the house. But she just turned around and left. I went inside the house and no longer hid my tears. I was sad that I had lost this too, offended that the girls did not want to be friends with me, that I was alone, that my parents and brother did not notice me, that no one needed me. I only had myself. But Evie was right. Money cannot buy sincerity. I cried hard and went to the basement to look for the money I had left. To be honest, I was creeped out by the story I made up. There was dust and building materials everywhere. On my way downstairs, I tripped over something, fell, and hurt my knee, which made me cry even more. And then I went down to the basement, somehow dug out a bottle and wanted to get out, but then I saw a rat. I screamed like crazy. It was all so creepy and scary. And in a panic, I pushed a board, it fell on the wall, and a lot of bricks fell down. My way out was completely closed off now, and something heavy fell on my head. I lost consciousness. I don't know how long it took before I regained my consciousness. For a long time, I could not understand where I was. Then I remembered the money, got my phone out, and got up. I wanted to call, but the phone was broken. It must have broken when I fell down, and only a flashlight worked. I felt my body and everything seemed to be fine. At first, I tried not to panic and carefully moved the bricks, but whatever I touched, it got worse. The sand got into my nose and mouth, the dust was everywhere, It was difficult for me to breathe. I could hardly see anything. And then I really panicked. I shouted and called for help. I tried to find a spot to dig, but I could not. I had almost no free space left behind me. I realized that I would stay here and suffocate. I regretted that I came down here. Suddenly, the thought came to me. What if the girls were caught in a landslide? What if they died here and it was all my fault? Just because I envied them. Just because I wanted to prove that money could buy anything. I don't know how much time had passed, but it seemed endless to me. I didn't have the strength to look for a way out. From the lack of oxygen, I began to lose consciousness again. The thought of my own death petrified me. I suddenly started talking to myself, mentally said goodbye, and so deeply regretted that I was trying to prove something. I lay down on a pile of stones and watched my flashlight shine in the ceiling. I closed my eyes and thought about my family. More time passed and I heard some noise. A painfully familiar voice screamed my name, but I couldn't answer. I vaguely remember what happened next. Evie was holding my hand and calling someone, my flashlight flashing, dust, pain in my chest, and then it was dark again. I opened my eyes and a bright light disoriented me. Looking around, I saw that I was lying on a bed. I was in a hospital. I breathed oxygen. My mother and brother were sitting next to me. As soon as they noticed that I woke up, they immediately ran up to me. Mom was kissing me more than she has ever had before, and my brother was crying. For the first time, I saw that he was crying because of me, and I was so surprised. I barely had any strength but asked what happened. My mother said that Evie called an ambulance and said that I was lying under the rubble in the basement, nearly without oxygen. Did she come back for me? I asked my mom. She didn't hear, she just asked me why I went there. Then the doctor entered the room, examined me. My mom and my brother went out to talk to him, and then Evie came in. "How are you?" she asked. I saw that she was covered in mud. Her dress was torn. Without answering the question, I asked, "Why did you come back? I told you so many nasty things." And she replied, "I'm poor, remember? I had no money for a taxi, so I was waiting for a car to pick me up. And then I heard noises, realized that they were coming from your house, and ran to you. I barely found you in the darkness and started digging you out. You were lying there and barely breathing. After all, you could not have come. Not risk your life," I told her, and she said, "Actually, I came to pick up those $100 that I won. Well, I also ended up pulling you out, so now you owe me 1,000 because everything can be measured in money, right?" And then she laughed. I understood that she was joking. I just realized that I was gripping the bottle with money. I told her to take it. "Did you not understand that real friendship is not built on money?" And she put it under my pillow. From that moment on, I had a real friend. And also my parents and my brother began to pay more attention to me. And it was all for free too. So friends, there are things that you can't buy with money. If you are really sincere, then they get to you free of charge. If you liked the story, then give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe.